It's Will, aka ZombieNikon, and I'm here with
Jake, aka Yakovia.
And we're going to talk about stuff today. But before we get into that, how have you been, my friend? I feel like I haven't seen you in like, what, 2 days?
Yeah, it's been forever.
Yeah, it seems like it has. Yeah, because in case anyone didn't know, we work together as well, and then we do this on the weekends. It's like we're best friends or something. But actually, I do want to ask you something first before we get started. How was your session, on Friday? Because you played D&D this weekend. We didn't get to play D&D together in my campaign.
Yeah, so my session was pretty solid. They finally actually face-to-face met the big baddie, second to last session, and it did not go very well for them.
No?
Is how I'm going to put it.
What happened?
Well, in my session, I have a Dragon Rider, which is an alternate class, so it's not actually, it's like an Unearthed Arcana. It's not really real.
Yeah, like a homebrew one.
A homebrew, yeah. Sorry, forgot the word for a second there. And essentially, he has his own dragon that he rides around on. In this entire campaign, the anti-party are dragon hunters.
Yeah.
So as soon as they actually engaged with the other party, he thought he was going to be able to fly away and do other things like that. And everything is geared for them to be able to hunt dragons.
Yeah.
Which means they don't. So it got pretty tense there. I did have a backup plan because I knew they weren't quite up to snuff at this point. And the main point of this battle was to, as a background thing, the main point was to potentially eliminate some of the anti-party so the final battle isn't super difficult.
Isn't as grueling.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So the main guy's a level 20 barbarian, and he's assisted by a gnome wizard and like a human paladin. And they got the gnome down to 10, and then he just teleported away.
Yeah.
Because only 2 people attacked him, and then everybody else just left him alone, which was not positive because that guy is... messes with their plans quite a lot. So it was pretty interesting though. It was a solid session.
No one died, right?
No one died. No one went down. The cleric got hit with a disintegrate. He got hit in the first round of combat against a different target, down to 3 hit points. So he took like 100 some odd damage.
Jesus.
And then the blood hunter, who's a werewolf, also took a disintegrate spell to the chest for another 70 points of damage. So they were...
And that started combat? Like, was that like a surprise round, or was it just like the first round?
The gnome wizard rolled a 24 for initiative. And then...
What the fuck?
and then it was just like, ran up 25 feet and was like, alaka-blam. And then that just... so that was real solid. So yeah.
My God.
It was tense. They know what they're going into, I think, in the next session. So that was kind of the point of this one. Being a second to last session, the next one's going to be really tense as well. But this time it's do or die, essentially.
Yeah,
There's not going to be any plot thing to bring him out of it or anything like that. So
what level is the party right now for you?
15 and 14. So I have one 15 level character, and then everyone else is 14.
Interesting. And then what level are you planning to have them at when they actually face off with everyone?
That's the final levels.
Oh yeah. So they're just going to be there. Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it should be a good finish.
Wow. So that was what, you said it was like 170 points of damage to like 2 different party members?
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're going to die.
And
they're going to die.
Yeah. Well, it was only 2 rounds of combat, and one character went from 100 some odd health down to about 30 because of how powerful the main villain is, essentially.
Not bad. Clicking. I'm going to leave this open, actually, because it's making all kinds of noise.
Hashtag Zealot Barbarian.
Hashtag Zealot Barbarian.
Yeah. Real dumb.
Jesus. Okay. Well, what I was telling you before we started, too, was I was recording for my YouTube channel, YouTube, ZombieNikon, by the way. And I was recording Fallout New Vegas, which I've heavily modded. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And I started off like from the beginning, like where you make your character and do all that stuff. And I had set it up the way that I stream, which is I have like my green screen behind me, right? And then I have to like, whatever the filter is called, chroma key. And you get rid of like the green color. And so it's just like you right in front of the gameplay. Well, the problem with that is I record on a larger width. So it's actually like 3840 by 1080 width. Okay. And it's because you can crop down, like you basically upload both video feeds, like 2 video feeds, and you crop one down for just camera, and then you crop one down for just video. Not to get into all the nerdy stuff here, hashtag an expert. But what that allows you to do is you can move the camera around. You can make it larger, smaller, do all that random shit that people do. Well, the problem with that is because I added the chroma key into it as I was recording, and not just a blank green screen, like just green behind me, it made it to where whenever I was going back to look through the edit, I just had black behind me. And so like when I copied it over onto the video, instead of it showing like the gameplay behind me, it's just a black fucking screen.
Solid.
So for the first, like, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes of me creating my character, my shit's not built right. Like, I didn't even set up. Like, which is where the mediocre in our name, I think, comes from.
Yeah.
So instead of redoing it all, I'm just probably going to blank that out to where I just don't have my face on it. And then, like, I'm going to put my face in there after the fact now that I have it set up correctly.
Yeah.
It was a shit show.
You know,
it's also been a really long time since I've recorded anything for my YouTube channel, so that's the excuse I'm going with on that one.
I don't think you were actually using a green screen last time you were recording with your.
I did for Cyberpunk, and I think maybe a little bit of Dishonored. I don't remember, but those are the last 2 games I was recording, and then I lost all of the gameplay for both of those when I changed my stuff over, and so I just decided, like, I'm just going to scrap it and start over with something I actually enjoy.
Right.
But you'll have to watch the video. I thought it was pretty funny because I kind of accidentally fucked up the first 2 missions, but same time, like, I knew what I was doing because I've played this game religiously for like 10 years. So, well, I guess it's been like 6 years since I played it. But
I'll say, if you can make any decision, is it really fucking anything up, you know?
True. Except that I failed 2 quests. So, like... You'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah. You'll have to watch the video when I upload it. But yeah, it was ridiculous. I guess for like the discussion portion of this, it's kind of related to D&D, but it's more related to just a general question that I have for you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, because as you know, we've recently watched The Count of Monte Cristo. I also watched a few other movies in my downtime. I'm a bit of a cinemaphile. Why are revenge stories so good? Like, why is that a go-to for a lot of people? So just to give you some examples of the movies that I've seen or you know, been interacting with. So we watched The Count of Monte Cristo. It's a revenge story, an amazing revenge story. If you have not watched it, go and watch it. Thor Ragnarok is a revenge story. Brie and I have been going back through the Marvel movies. Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler, if you remember that one. Yeah. And then any Batman movie ever, because Batman's like the ultimate revenge guy, right? So, right. And then all D&D backstories ever. Like their parents always get killed. Yeah. And then like it's just a revenge story from there. And, I don't know why. Like, is revenge just relatable? Like,
I think what makes those so cinegraphic is
cinegraphic. I like that word. That's nice. Inventing words.
Exists. Yeah, you know. What makes it so solid is the focus that you see in those characters. 2 more prime examples of very renowned movies would be like The Patriot and Gladiator.
True. Yeah.
Extremely driven.
Yeah, old Maximus Decimus Meridius over here.
Yeah. And General of the North. And it's the drive, I think, that people like to think that they could do it, but I think there's a bit of realism in the back of your head that says this is something else. Yeah. And that's why it's entertaining to watch, because it's possible to reach that level. I think everyone in their own head believes that they're capable of those things. And that's where the whole, like, oh, well, you were hooking up with girls, I studied the blade. Because, like, everybody legitimately thinks that they're a badass in their own head, right? I guess they really think that if they got pushed to that level, they could take it there. But I think there's still that hint of realism of, like, no, this is something different. But it's still, you connect with it in that way to a degree, you know?
Yeah, because in our current campaign, in my current campaign, I should say, well, I guess in yours too, technically. Because you have the dragon guy, the big baddie, the zealot barbarian. He's basically getting revenge, isn't he? Yeah. And then in my campaign, we have Ambrose, played by our dear friend Ross, who's probably never going to actually listen to our podcast. And as much as he's been saying he would. And his whole thing is that he has a revenge backstory as well. And, you know, the parents died and stuff. But not to spoil too much, I just don't know if he is going to go the route that we want. He's been taking a very lawful approach, like Law-Abiding Citizen, except Law-Abiding Citizen blew up a bunch of people. I guess that's not lawful. What's a good lawful approach? Oh, actually, The Count of Monte Cristo. He gets everyone sent to prison in the like parts of that movie. Right. And then he straight up murders the guy at the end. Spoilers, it's been out for fucking 19 years. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's what I was thinking about.
You know,
because like I said, we were watching that, and then I started watching other movies, and a bunch of other stuff just kept happening, and it kept dawning on me that like almost like the default for cinema and the default even for D&D, which is something we talk about a lot, seems to be revenge or justice.
right.
You know,
well, it's a driving plot. You know, you don't just most good stories aren't just some guy who decides to do something.
Yeah,
you have to have something that actually drives you to do it.
Yeah,
essentially. And revenge is kind of the easiest.
Yeah.
Where you can easily just say, okay, cool. What's gonna make the Count of Monte Cristo as aggressive as he is? And it's like, all right, this guy sent him to prison. Okay, so he hates that guy.
Yeah.
But it's not just regular prison. It's you don't see anybody.
The Chateau d'If.
The Chateau d'If. Which is another kind of interesting point that we've talked about offline before of backgrounds and like what you are before, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting if you watch The Count of Monte Cristo. At first, him and his friend the Count have actually been through adventures. They've had their own fair share of things. So he's probably like level 3 or 4 or something like that at that point in time.
Yeah, he was like a sailor and stuff.
But he has a sailor background, right? And everyone thinks that everything needs to start, or all your motivation has to start before the game starts.
Yeah.
But in reality, the Count of Monte Cristo, what makes it such a good movie from beginning to end is his motivation to become a like rogue fighter is afterwards.
Yeah.
It happens in the movie where you can see it and experience it.
Yeah.
He had a decent life. He wasn't trained in fighting or anything like that, and then all of a sudden gets sent to prison for 13 years. 8 of those years he's tunneling with old Gandalf.
The priest.
The priest, yeah. And the priest is training him, and he's learning all these things. And I don't think a lot of people take that aspect into this can be part of the adventure as well.
Yeah.
He didn't gain the need for vengeance until the adventure had already started. I think everyone always comes into a session immediately with, I need to, like, my parents are dead, so I have to go find whoever killed them.
Yeah,
versus
just right out the gate,
just right out the gate
an
versus something happening to him.
Yeah.
You know, and people, some people would argue that he doesn't start his adventure till he escapes from prison, but to me, the movie started when it started.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well,
he had
yeah,
adventures
obviously.
that. You know?
It was to me. I mean, yeah. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong when it comes to that.
Right.
Because I even did that with AJ's character, the gunslinger gnome.
Yep.
What the hell do we call him? Attack gnome. The attack gnome. Yeah.
Yeah, the attack gnome.
With the attack gnome, he had a normal background. His parents weren't dead. He had this like friend that he grew up with and all that stuff. And then they kind of split. Like 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was, in game, and then I tied it in with Tanak's brother's backstory and your backstory technically, and made them basically just villains that wanted to like get rid of all tieflings from the prime material plane.
Right.
And I don't think he ever really ran with that, but that was me trying to do a revenge story after the campaign started, and it didn't really work out.
AJ in particular was a very non-role playing orientated individual.
Yeah.
Which they exist, they're out there, that's fine. Not everybody has to be.
Yeah,
but
really
I do
combat.
feel those elements brought him into the game a little bit more as much as you could an individual like that.
Yeah.
So he still enjoys playing, he still enjoys doing that stuff, but he's not really there for the story. But you gave him a story, and then he kind of latched on to certain aspects of that.
Yeah, he did.
Which was a good thing. A very dramatic moment is he sees like the ghost of his mother, but because it's attacking him, he attacks his own mom. You know what I mean? And it gets dramatic at that point in time. Everyone at the table's like, "Oh man, this guy will
straight
kill
up murder
anything."
your ghost mom.
Yeah, like kill anything in front of him. Like he has that disconnect. That kind of thing. I think it's solid to do that, to bring people into the fold. If you have a player who's not really interested in role play, or maybe they're not a good natural storyteller, you as the DM, it's your job to incorporate a world around them and bring them in.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do with Taylor's character right now. Because she's not really into the whole roleplay aspect of it, and she's been getting better at it. But she worships Celeste as a cleric, which is one of the gods in Finrath, Finrath.com, if you're wondering. And right now, I'm trying to give her more story. I'm trying to give her like dreams and like prophesize stuff for her. And she kind of went on like a little bit of a vengeance path, a little bit of a revenge, because I gave her all these like dreams that really, horrible, with burning down forests and fire elementals and people like innocents getting killed and all that stuff, which I think we briefly talked about last week. But and I think she got a little bit into it, but that's also what led to them nearly dying in that, because they were all really like gung ho and ready to murder after being bored for several days in game. And then it literally led to them making mistakes, which is what killed my wife's character. But yeah, no, it was just something I was thinking about, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Because they're good. Like, revenge stories are always good, in my opinion. Like, I haven't really found a bad revenge story.
Good revenge stories are good, and the good ones stick in your head like that.
Yeah.
Right. Going back to revenge and all that stuff, Thor: The Dark World, Thor 2.
Oh yeah.
Terrible movie. And it's a revenge story on the side of the villain. And all it is I woke up finally and I'm grumpy, so I'm gonna like wipe out the universe.
Yeah, the Dark Elves.
But it's not. It doesn't feel fleshed out. It doesn't feel very good.
I never really understood the Dark Elves in that either. Side channel here, sidebar.
Yeah.
They were called the Dark Elves, but they were like pale, and they had like the sun crest and all that stuff. If you remember,
right?
They were literally like the Sun Elves, like Ariel and shit from like Skyrim.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? They were called Dark Elves.
They were the Dark Elves, and my lovely wife will correct me if I'm wrong, because she's way more into the Marvel universe. The reason they're the Dark Elves,
they wanted, like, the
I think,
sun
is
to go down and
because they are before light existed.
I
think that's the main hook there.
Yeah, well that's what it is now, regardless. So that's canon now. Yep.
That's canon. Yeah.
Write it in.
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah. Disney.
Yeah. Get it, Favreau. Go with it.
There was something I was going to say with that. Another bad revenge story to me, because I do watch anime, is Sasuke Uchiha.
Oh yeah,
all of his parents
Naruto.
died. Yeah, and oh my god, and hashtag Broccoli's the best. Guy actually like strives and achieves thing, and then old Sasuke is like, oh, my parents are dead.
Oh, it's like, okay, emo Sag boy.
Okay, anime Batman, calm down. That's all he is. Like, oh my god. And then, spoilers, again, the show's been out forever. He eventually finds his brother who killed his parents and then kills him, and then he's all pissed off that he killed his own brother. And then it's just like fucking confusing as hell.
Yeah, I've never watched Naruto, and I don't think I'm ever going to, because it's like, what, 900 episodes of filler?
Yeah, if you
like
if you actually watched all episodes, you'd be watching like 750 episodes.
Oh
total.
God, that's so harsh.
For me, I've seen it before, so I skip a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
For instance, in the first Naruto, I watched probably episode 1 through like 140, skipping through some of the low point, like really slow points, or a few of the fillers that were there.
Yeah.
And then that series doesn't technically end until episode 220, but that's all filler.
Oh,
so
God.
I just did not watch that, 80 plus episodes.
Yeah, that just sounds awful.
And someone is probably going to argue there's things that happen, but not really. Honestly, like at the end of the day,
end of the day, you're wrong. Is what we're saying.
But that's the thing, is bad revenge stories don't stick in your brain as much.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because I didn't even think about. I literally talked about Thor Ragnarok, where he's like basically getting revenge for like. Well, he's mad at Loki because Loki like fucks over his dad and basically gets him killed, but then Hela like takes everything from him and destroys the hammer, and then he like spends the entire series just building up and going to like fight her,
right,
and finding his own power within, you know.
Oh, exactly.
But
and something that was in the comic books
World.
and in the comic books, as well as the animated movie that they did involving the Dark Elves and stuff like that, is the main Dark Elf villain was actually their ward, like their babysitter growing up.
Oh, weird.
For Thor and Loki.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And it made the betrayal so much more biting.
Yeah,
at
they
that
did
point
not do that well in that movie then.
No, not well,
because he just like
change
dies.
things for movies and stuff like that. It's
and it's the cinematic universe now, so it's a lot different than what the comic books were.
Exactly, and I think they want to tweak things so people can't guess it. But to me, that revenge feels even more like poignant, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Because you got to think in their terms, they're thousands of years old. So this guy held on to that bitterness for thousands of years until he can enact his plan. And that feels more aggressive. It feels better than just like, oh, I woke up and I'm just going to destroy.
Well, it's kind of like the cop out at the end of Endgame, right? Yeah. Again, spoiler alert. They give the fucking shield to Falcon. Now, there's nothing wrong with Falcon. Like, he was a cool character and all that stuff. I honestly think they should have just given him a fucking Iron Man suit, and it does the exact same thing they did throughout all this series. Yeah. But whatever there. But yeah, no, they literally give him the shield. They are basically making him Captain America. And I know you were saying that you've watched the Winter Soldier and fucking new Cap, Falcon, the Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus. I haven't seen the first episode yet, or the second episode, and to me, that just seems so shitty because you spend all this time, and I've literally went back and watched almost every Marvel movie over the past like few weeks, and Bucky seems like he deserves it more. He has this start out of being like an assassin and being like crazy and like getting over this stuff with Hydra and like moving past that, and then he like, there's even the scene in Civil War where they're fighting Iron Man together, and he's like wielding the shield and like bouncing it off of shit and being all badass with it, and then he just like, oh, you should wield it, Falcon. The guy who's not a super soldier and doesn't do anything and can't calculate how to fucking bounce the shield off 3 walls and kill dudes with it. Like, why would you give it to Falcon?
Well, and I'm not going to spoil anything because the series is really, really new. The first 2 episodes kind of address that exact question.
Yeah, I bet.
And definitely leave you hanging for more, if that makes sense. But it's a good question of why go that route.
Yeah.
And without spoiling anything, Steve Rogers, I think, made that decision out of
prematurely.
Well, I mean, you got to think he went back in time and had another 60 years to make the decision.
Something like 70, 75.
I think there's a lot that went into it that hasn't been revealed yet. Essentially, which is one of the joys of having a cinematic universe is that you can flesh things out.
Yeah, they need to.
One thing that I like about the pacing of the series that have come out from Marvel is it doesn't feel like you're watching a movie. It feels like you're watching a show.
Yeah.
Which means that you can introduce more back characters. You can have slow moments without it being like
slow.
I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be a big part of what fleshes it out.
Yeah, because you're going to be so proud of me. Bree and I finished WandaVision.
Oh yeah,
yesterday,
last
night.
I have a meme specifically. I have to send you then.
Oh yeah.
That's all I've been waiting for.
Well, I'll add it to the YouTube video. Are you going to send it? Send it to me. Go ahead, do it. Do it now.
Yeah.
But they finally made her. Well, spoiler alert. They finally made her the Scarlet Witch, which is something that I think Bree has been looking forward to because that's one of her favorite Marvel characters.
Right.
Along with Agatha Harkness, which I'm not going to say I called it, but I had my suspicions very early on that there was something weird with her.
She was incredibly sus the entire time.
Yeah, I was super sus. Super sus. Red was sus.
What I wasn't sure of was how far they were going to take her character.
Yeah.
And whether or not she's being manipulated in the background. But the moment she was like on screen, I was like, she's suspicious as hell.
Yeah, right? Like that was very, very suspicious. And then the whole series was very well done. I enjoyed it. It felt like you were watching a mini movie, literally. I mean, that's what it is. But it felt like you were watching a Marvel movie as you were watching through it, if that makes sense. Like it still felt good. Production. Yeah, very well done.
One thing that I liked that they did was handling the whole having 2 robots at the end, and again, spoilers and all that fun jazz.
Ship of Theseus.
Yeah, the Ship of Theseus. It was a great way, and again, bringing it back to D&D since that's the primary thing we talk about. It's that way that you don't always have to have combat with somebody.
Yeah.
You can try to convince them to do it a different way. You can find a route around. You can fly overhead, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can talk. You can talk in D&D, and I don't think people use that enough.
No, not at all.
It's role play. It's what you're supposed to do at the table, right?
Yeah,
you're supposed to interact with the villains.
Exactly.
Let them monologue and then fucking have the rogue sneak around behind them and fuck them up. Like, that's what you do. And in this particular instance, what you're talking about is Vision and other Vision, White Vision, are like basically duking it out, and then they eventually get to a point to where they start like philosophizing. They start going into like philosophy, and the philosophy of if either of them is the actual Vision, and instead of just beating the shit out of each other, they eventually kind of come to terms with that neither of them are the real Vision, and then they like, what did he like touched him on his little like rune hole thing where the Mind Stone was, and then like showed him all the visions, and then White Vision was like, I am Vision, and then just bolted out, which is, it seems like it's a setup for something in the future. Yeah. And I know the next movie with the Scarlet Witch is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
And I don't know if they're going to do anything with that, but it almost made it seem like they recreated Vision, and then he got all those memories back and, all that stuff. The only difference was he did not have the Mind Stone because it was destroyed. So I don't know where that's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But yeah, all in all, it was a great series. It was a great series, I think, from start to finish. And there were slow moments, but it didn't ever feel like you weren't learning something. The other thing I want to talk about with this was I don't understand what people were talking about. Like, everyone was like, oh, there's all these like little things that you'll see in WandaVision, like all these little like whatever things. But it seemed like the entire series was basically just fucking handing you everything. It wasn't like, oh, there's some sort of like crazy plot going on in the background. It was like, hey, these people are the ones that are doing this. It's Agatha Harkness is the bad guy. Like, Wanda is going to be the Scarlet Witch. Like, it was never, what's the word I'm looking for?
Subtle?
Yeah, it was never subtle, and I don't know what people were talking about. Like, what were people reading into with that?
It was a lot of the stuff in the background, and it was a lot of speculation. A lot of the people who are upset at the series are because their speculations were wrong based off of what they saw.
Well, yeah, but to me, like, the writers of this show were like very blatant, like handing you the like plot. Like, I don't know
what people were going crazy for weren't necessarily the things happening in the plot. It was kind of like all the callbacks to the comics.
Yeah, right? and like they had the Halloween episode where they both dressed up in their old outfits,
right?
For the Scarlet Witch and Vision, and then you had Quicksilver. But the Quicksilver from X-Men,
yeah, which was a solid play.
Yeah, it was good. And I don't know, man. Like, it just, I couldn't find anything, and maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough, and maybe I'm just not that big of a Marvel fan, but I couldn't find anything that wasn't already obvious.
Right.
Like, they did do the callbacks in like some of the commercials. I can't think of the one specifically, but it's in like episode 5 or 6, and they have the little like commercial thing, and it's talking about like, oh man, it's a callback to the older, like, I think it was like Age of Ultron or whatever, whenever they actually were, when Wanda and Quicksilver and all those guys get introduced. And I can't freaking remember it off the top of my head now. I'll have to show it to you later. But yeah. It was a whole thing. And that was like one of the things I noticed. I was like, oh, that's funny. Haha, good job. And then, I don't know, like the plot was literally just, as you watch the series, it was just handed to you, you know, which isn't a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. I like the series. It's just, I don't know what the fuck people were talking about.
Well, I think it goes back to like subtle things that the in-depth people enjoyed seeing. So at one point, I think you see like a locust on a wall, and that was actually very commonly portrayed as one of the main villains in Marvel would transform himself to look like that. And there's things like that.
Yeah, and then she like took it off the wall and like put it on like fucking Wanda's face and shit.
Yeah, and stuff like that. You know,
gross.
And I think it was a pretty solid series.
I feel like that's just reading too far into stuff, though. Like, I think Marvel, like, the creators and writers of the show, they know, and I mean, they obviously know. Well, and it
was attention to detail and stuff like that. So I think like the name of the milk was the same name as in the comic books of old and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was a lot of the attention to detail to do it right versus just like throw whatever in there and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Yep. That's what people were really honing in on, is they were like, oh, this is actually like, this part of it is the same part as in this comic book from 1983 and stuff like that, was kind of what people were really focusing on, because they, at the time, since it was being released 1 week at a time, they were trying to gather as much information they could before seeing the series and trying to guess what was going to happen next and stuff like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
But all in all, amazing show. So you can send me your memes now. I've watched all 9 episodes or whatever it was. So that's all done. I also don't really know. I mean, everyone was saying that it like really picks up with like the 3rd episode and all that stuff and continues on. And then everybody was saying that like episode 9 was just like blew people's minds and stuff. But like, I don't know. I mean, it was just like, it was the reveal of the big baddie, but I don't know. To me, it seemed a little lackluster because it was just like, oh, she's the evil villain. And then they go through like, I enjoyed where they went through like Wanda's backstory and showed why she acts the way she is and all the fucking loss that she's been through. Holy God, that woman has been through stuff. Brie was crying. Brie cried during that series.
Makes sense.
Multiple times. The part where it shows her going up to the house that's like all, you know, being built. And then she has the deed from Vision that's just like, for us to stay here or to grow old in together, and then it just says like -V and it's like in the heart or whatever. Brie was bawling her eyes out.
Well, it's a dramatic, really intense point. It really is. Yeah, and like I said, with Agnes, she seemed sus as soon as she was on board. And then to see that she's the main villain and that's the only one they focused on, that was more of a shock, because I always figured there was someone else behind the scenes, so to say, and stuff like that. You know,
it really felt like. It really felt like the dude from Sword was gonna be the big baddie. Like he was doing like he was trying to weaponize Vision, and then I guess it turned out that he wasn't trying to weaponize him, that he was just trying to like tear him apart, and then he was going to use the... I don't know, it was weird.
His character bugs me because he's just generic director of some kind of intelligence agency number 3.
Yeah.
That's all he is he doesn't tell anybody the truth, and then he's
sword and shield. What is this, Pokemon now?
Heck
Jesus. Stop it.
Hashtag Marvel did it first. But no, and his character just bugged me because that's all it was. That's all he was just generic, like, oh, I'm in charge of this intelligence agency, so I gotta keep secrets or make other people look like the bad guy.
I don't play by the rules.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't follow the rules. You know. Yeah.
We've gotten really off topic on this one again, but yeah, all in all, great series. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think they did it very well, and I think it's a good setup for the Doctor Strange, Wanda, like not spinoff movie that they're gonna do, if they're still doing that. I haven't even like checked into it. And then beyond that, do you think there's gonna be a season 2 of that? Do you think they're gonna do like multiple seasons of like WandaVision and multiple seasons of like?
I don't think there's any plan to. A lot of their stuff was supposed to be one-ofs, where they could just kind of expand that universe.
Yeah, just really like miniseries.
How things really expand on it, which isn't a bad thing to me. I feel like a lot of stuff gets the Fast and the Furious treatment, where you look up and then there's 9 movies of it, and you're like,
come on,
why that many? You know, you've told your story, kind of move on a little bit. You know,
yeah, but a Fast and the Furious series, wouldn't that be dope? That'd be cool.
You could do a miniseries, and it could be really cool, you know. And
they probably should have. Honestly, I feel like they should have. Like, no, they shouldn't have. No, I don't know what the fuck am I saying right now. No, they should. They should stop.
They are very fun movies for what they are, but at a certain point, you gotta finish telling your story. That's pretty much the gist of it. Is you really do at a certain point. Otherwise, you just kind of keep floundering and like, okay, how do we?
It's always the same plot, isn't it? Like.
Right.
Like they got to go steal some cars for like an organization to like avoid like getting in prison for stealing cars. Like
I think if you look at it, the first 3 are like all about stealing like basic electronics to make money off of them.
Because the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and then from there,
VCRs.
It just gets crazy left turn where they're like, we gotta steal the
Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that kind of thing. You know, and
with cars.
Yeah, and they're fun movies. You cannot go into them with any kind of realism. Like with the, I think there's a chase scene in one of them where they're like trying to catch up to like a C-17 that's taking off.
Oh yeah,
and there's no runway on the planet that's 50 miles long.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
or like the constant like shifting gears, like upshifting.
Yeah.
When there's like 6 gears.
Yeah, exactly. It's minute control. Okay.
Oh yeah. They gotta have 37 gears to shift through.
Speaking of which, a little bit off topic here is I actually knew a guy who we were in a bobtail. And a bobtail is an F-350, really short, stubby truck, right? And it has a governor on it, and it caps the speed at like 40 miles an hour. And they're like, they are not precision equipment at all when it comes to like speed or anything like that. And he kept scooting the bench seat up, and the guy who was with him was just like, what the are you doing? And he's like, it's for more fine-tuned control over the acceleration. And I was like, what, to 40? Like, Jesus, dude. Like
0 to 40 in 10.5 minutes.
But again, that guy had a Mustang with a V6 and thought it was the fastest car on base. And
oh yeah, you said that, the automatic V6.
Yeah, and just throwing
you
shade.
You want to race, bud?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, on base. You know, but that guy was a tool. But at the same time, like, it's the Fast and the Furious mentality. You know, upshifting, downshifting constantly for that precision.
Because like in my Camaro, I have like the manual shifters on the steering wheel.
Yeah,
and I can like swap it to manual, quote unquote manual. It's still an automatic fucking Camaro.
Yeah,
and I've known people that use those. They actually like try to manually shift with those little things with like a V6 fucking automatic Camaro, and they think it's like so cool.
The only time I've ever
if you do that, we're making fun of you right now, just so you know.
The only time I've ever done that was like on ice, and that was just to like keep it in first gear so I don't go too fast. That was the only time I've ever used any feature like that whatsoever.
Oh man. All right, let's get back on topic. Sorry. I'm enjoying talking to you. I was also just really excited to do this podcast this week. I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Palling around, you know.
The next topic that I have for you is actually from D&D Beyond.
All right.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's from Reddit. This is from Reddit. Oh, you sent me this photo. I just got it. Hold on. What is this? Oh, Sparky, no. I'll post that in the YouTube video. You have to go to my channel to watch it. Everyone that's, visual learners. Reddit though, right? The title of this is changing race mechanics after a campaign has started and party doesn't like it. And he says, I'm running a homebrew campaign with 6 pals in a world I'm making as a part of a writing class this semester at uni. I got to a stage of the world building process where I began populating my world with races, and I figured I'd start with many of the core races of D&D since I'm running a game in it. I figured I'd take away dark vision from a lot of the races in my world that don't have a physical / living underground or magical extraplanar reason for having it. Elves being the controversial decision here, since elves don't originate from the Feywild in my setting, and he went to specify that. And he says, this would affect 3 out of 6 of my players in the campaign, so 50%. And they are all either a little upset or totally against it. And he goes on to talk into the whole fucking series of all kinds of shit. And then he didn't add a TLDR. And the first comment on this is, grandfathering their player characters to have it is probably your best bet. Nerfing characters multiple session ends leaves a bad taste in the mouth, even if it makes sense in the scene of things or in the setting. So I guess my question to you is, so if you're playing a campaign like right now with Mac, right? And then for whatever reason you were building a world and you're like, well, Finrath, for instance. Finrath, at the time that you were playing in, the world that I built, doesn't really have dragons. There's only 5 dragons in existence. And there's no young dragons or any of that stuff because of some other crazy stuff that happened. Right? So if you were to go back and Mac, who's a dragon rider, and be like, hey, dragons don't exist, you're no longer a dragon rider, you're just a standard fighter. Honestly, I could see that would really upset him. But would you ever do that, and why, I guess, is the question.
Well, specifically
in what
talking
instance
about...
would you do that?
And specifically talking about the dragon rider, it actually geared his entire campaign once he realized that... at the beginning of it, there was probably 6 or 7, and it's down to 3 dragons left on the entire plane.
Oh yeah, because the barbarian's killing them.
Yeah, and now he has this driving factor to bring them back.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean?
That one worked out really well.
It worked out really well for there, but as far as changing characters and stuff,
so
you as the DM, right? You have utter control over this universe, whether people like it or not, right?
Yeah.
If someone's pissed off that they're losing dark vision, it's probably because they were mid-maxing a character. Right?
I could see that.
I guarantee you, anyone who's irate at losing dark vision doesn't care that they were an elf.
Okay, you're not wrong.
Right?
You're not wrong.
They were
you don't choose being an elf for dark vision. I guess
not
is what
typically,
yeah.
right?
Usually you choose it because before Tasha's it would give you a +2 to Dex and a +1 to intelligence.
Whoever that is probably got a +2 to Dex, +1 to intelligence, and they're like, dark vision, I need this. We're in caves all the time. And then losing that dark vision, they're like, well, I would pick a different race, but I don't get the same buffs or something like that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me, right? So to me, I would totally be down to change it. I don't know if I would change it halfway through a campaign, but we've talked about Tritons. Tritons are supposed to live at the bottom of the ocean, but they don't have dark vision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, it makes perfect sense that it is one of the darkest areas on the planet is at the depths of the ocean.
Yeah.
Give them dark vision.
What was the other one? Verdan. The new race of Verdan from Acquisitions Incorporated.
Yeah.
They don't get dark vision, but they're supposed to be the chaotic mutation of goblins.
Right.
Goblins have dark vision, so you're saying it mutated away? They just took it away.
Right.
And I guess the Verdan get a bunch of other stuff like black blood healing and all these other abilities and stuff that I'm not going to go into. So I guess they were trying to, the writers and the game designers were trying to not break the character and make people still want to play it, but it just feels weird, right? Dark vision is definitely one of those things that's debated,
right?
And so, if we were halfway through a campaign, actually, fucking Ross played a Triton, and I don't think I ever gave him dark vision. I was just like, oh, you don't have dark vision. He's like, well, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, well, it's what the game says. So.
Yeah. Oh, and I will say that changing things for story can have a very powerful impact that you don't realize. So I have 2 Dragonborn in my campaign, And in Finrath, in your
Dragonborn.
realm, Dragonborn do not always appear very Dragonborn.
Yeah, they don't have like the fucking horns and
Exactly.
like the scales and shit, or look dragon.
And both of them did, and they were very rare, and people gawked at them everywhere they went.
Yeah.
And then my green Dragonborn got contracted lycanthropy, and now he looks more human.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And he was like, wait, I don't look like a dragon anymore. And I was like, you know that out of all your siblings and stuff, you're the only person who ever looked even remotely draconic
yeah.
in any way. That it's extremely rare. And again, I don't think he's really picked up on the fact that now he looks more human, and it's partly because his genetics are tainted now.
Yeah.
That and another background thing, if anyone listens to this, is the only green dragon left in existence died.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so in Finrath, and just to clarify this for the people, I don't have any of this written out on my website yet, but basically in Finrath, the dragon like lineage, like dragonborn lineage, comes from whatever colored dragon that's out there. So for instance, the black dragon, the ancient black dragon, like true dragon, that magic is what kind of spreads across the land and allows the dragonborn mutation, if that's what you want to call it. And so whenever that dragon dies, that magic goes away, right? So I think that's actually what you just did in your campaign, which takes place like 100 or so years before the campaign you're playing in with me, the Acquisitions Incorporated one, which means that like black dragonborn, because that ancient black dragon is dead now, those guys would literally, like, their bloodline just slowly starts to not really die off, but look more and more human. So they might still have a dragonborn name, like last name, and if you speak Draconic, you would recognize it. But looking at them, they just look human or elvish or whatever, right? And I don't know, I thought that was kind of a cool way of doing it. And I think it's also because I didn't have a whole lot of like dragon lore written in Dungeons and Dragons, but yeah, and I just didn't have like the models and all that stuff, so I didn't want to have everyone just fighting dragons constantly and all that stuff.
Right.
But
no, and it was a good story element because it made him aware that there were things bigger than him. And,
everything's tied together.
And that individual,
magical.
And that individual's a good player. He shows up, he learns his stuff, but he's never grasped the bigger picture. And I feel like that brought him in to where he could start seeing that there's a lot of stuff connected. The big things that are happening are affecting him. Which is cause and effect. Which is good. If you have a story reason, I would take certain effects from certain people or add them. You know what I mean? Again, going back to my campaign, Lareth originally wasn't a dragonborn, or at least not that he knew of. Now that he possesses 4 souls of dragons, he has grown scales and has plus.
He is looking more armor. Like a dragonborn,
exactly.
Right? Like more like now that he's getting connected to that magic, he's getting there.
Exactly, you know, and the DM giveth and the DM taketh away.
Yeah.
If the main thing that you're concerned about is your friends are going to be upset about it, then that needs to be a conversation you have and be like, this is why. And this is why it makes sense in my universe. If you want something with dark vision, you have all these other races you can choose from. If you don't want to play your character anymore, then you can make a new character, you know. And ultimately, if someone pitches a fit over one
game
mechanic, I don't know if that's a positive person to have in your session anyways.
And one of the other top comments on this one is if you use core races, you use core races regardless of your world building. They will have to retain dark vision.
No,
not at all.
Fuck you guys.
100% disagree. 1,000% disagree, right? So if I am world building and I say that dragonborn don't exist or dragonborn look like humans, which is what I'm getting at, circling all the way back around, then you're going to look like a fucking human. Like, I don't care if you want to have scales. I don't care if you want to do any of that stuff. Like, if you can come up with a valid backstory reason as to why you would look like a red dragonborn in a world that doesn't have a red dragon in it, because that's my world, that's the one I built, then maybe we can talk about it.
Right.
But until then, like, I don't see why you wouldn't just fucking suck it up and then... Or pick a different race. Like, that's the other side of the coin too, right? Is like, it's not your job to write the story, it's my job to write the story. So if I write it in this way because I have something that I want to do down the line, or I want to give you an opportunity to bring back the red dragon race, right? Like, I think that's a good story. I think that's a great reason why you would be on this revenge path, right? And this guy, though, is just that's just such a douchebag thing to say. Like, if you go up to your DM and you're like, hey, you're using the core races, so you have to do it. No, he doesn't. It's the DM. And there's a fucking paragraph in the very first chapter of the player's handbook in the DMG that says the DM has the final say so, right? Like if the DM changes a rule, it automatically overwrites anything that's in this stupid little book.
Yep.
That's an argument that I had with Ryan all those moons ago because Rangers were severely underpowered and he wanted to be like a Ranger Beastmaster, but he was like, oh, well, they only get like 2 attacks. At like in 20th level, they're always going to be doing like less damage, whatever. And I was like, well, here is an opportunity to do it. An article on D&D Beyond I read said you could do this. And he was like, well, in the core rules, you can't. And I was like, well, I'm telling you can as your DM. And he's like, well, no other DM would do that. And I was like, it doesn't matter what other DM. You're not playing with other DMs right now, right?
Well, also, to go back to that.
Huge argument, dude.
Because we've been talking about the dragon so much and stuff like that, the Dragon Rider class, homebrew, does not get an additional attack ever.
Yeah.
And that is something that I talked to my player about, and he didn't even advocate for it. Just reading through it, I said, no, that's dumb. You have warlocks who gets extra attacks. There's a class of wizard that gets an extra attack. Everything out there can get a second attack. Why wouldn't you, as a fighter-based Dragon Rider, get one? Yeah. And without him, and he didn't advocate for it, he didn't push me for it. I'm the one who said, you get a second attack. You're level 15. There's no reason why you can't just slash.
Yeah.
You know, and it's things like that. And people don't realize that, like, the DM's there to facilitate everyone feeling like they're doing something at the table.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And that character was already doing stuff at the table, and I'm not taking away from the stuff he was doing before, but it felt lackluster compared to
other people,
I have
fighters that get 12 million attacks.
Yeah, and
stuff.
The reason why the other Dragonborn got so low is they fought a level 11 fighter.
Yeah.
And he came in, and in one round did 6 attacks and hit him for an average of like 15 4 times or something like that.
Yeah,
and just knocked out more than half of his health in one round.
Yeah.
And that hurts.
It does. It does, yeah.
And at that point, they don't really have anyone who can keep up with 6 attacks, you know, and they're supposed to be higher level than that individual. It was only supposed to be like a mid-level fight for the first one kind of thing. So yeah, I'm fully about, if you have a good story reason, take things away, give things. That's kind of
exactly.
You know?
And I am of the mindset that as the DM, like, well, my word is law. Like, I'm there to advocate the rules. I'm there to understand the rules and to write the story. So if I say that, like, hey, you don't get dark vision because this is the world we live in, right?
Right.
There's no reason why you couldn't find like goggles of night or some other uncommon item, spells that you could take to do it. So
a torch.
There's other ways around it. I'm giving you a problem, find a solution. Right. I guess that's my mindset, but maybe that's the wrong mindset. I don't know. It's my mindset. So
we'll give your support casters don't feel like they do a lot in 5th edition. Give your support caster a reason to feel like they accomplished something.
Yeah.
In the current campaign that we're playing, there's 2 characters that don't have dark vision, and it's the Verdan, which is
my lovely wife,
your lovely wife, and then it's Whistler, who's a rogue assassin, who's a DPS based character,
also
which means which means that whenever she goes into the battle, she usually does something along the lines of a support spell that's either dark vision or daylight,
to light up the battlefield.
And guess who immediately becomes viable as a character? Whistler, which means that yes, her as a person doesn't do a lot of damage, but then she just activated the rogue who's getting like 30 to 40 damage on average a turn
at level 5.
Or
6 now actually.
So yeah, give your players those problems that they need to solve. Let your support players feel like they're actually supporting the party. They're doing those things other than like, oh, I cast haste. Well, are you going to do anything else? No, I cast haste. That's the only thing you need.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Give them a reason to take other spells other than haste and fireball and fucking all the normal shit.
Yep.
But we're going to get into commenting on comments. Let me just get this going right here. Look at that. Nice little synth wave. Thanks, Harris Heller. You're a great man. Well, my first comment here, because we were kind of already talking about it, this one's actually kind of positive. It's also a question that I have for you, and I want to know how you would handle this. So it's from D&D Beyond. It's from an article talking about the oozes and how to play them as better monsters, right?
Okay.
And I enjoy those things. But it says, these are fun, oozes. I like this one in particular because there are so many evil ways to use these. And he's talking about the article at that point. So for Black Pudding, which is one of the most common oozes, if you cast Enlarge on it and then slash it up, what happens to the smaller ones when the spell wears off? It makes Reduce a great spell to use against these things too, less splits. So basically what he's saying is, if you cast Enlarge on an ooze and then chop it and then like get rid of the spell, because what happens with black puddings is they split, right?
Okay.
When you deal a certain amount of damage to them, or lightning damage with them, they split into smaller ones, and their health gets like slashed in half. So if you cast enlarge and then cut it in half, are they just two regular size oozes, I guess? And this comment doesn't really like enunciate what I'm getting at here.
Right.
So if you cast enlarge, it goes from being a large creature to a huge creature. You cut it in half. Is it two large oozes, or is it two medium oozes? And then if you were to get rid of it, do they shrink from like large to medium or large to small? Like what happens in that scenario? Casting enlarge on a creature that splits, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right,
like,
right.
It just blows my mind for some reason. And
Yeah,
I guess I just need to work
it's
through
a
this.
solid, it's a solid question. I think to me, enlarge doesn't actually change anything on your stat block except that it adds a little bit of damage.
Yeah. No,
so it doesn't
the
give
only thing that does is it
doesn't give you additional health.
you go up by
like
one
that.
size category,
Right.
is the thing there. So what he's saying in this comment, and I think what he's trying to get at, is if you cast reduce on one, it goes from being a medium creature to a small creature, and then splits into two tiny creatures.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Like it blows my mind for some reason thinking about this.
Me personally, I would just have them have the same stat block, but they occupy a larger space.
Yeah.
And then you move up and down for whatever the
Size
last
category
one is.
Yeah.
You know, like if they're supposed to eventually split into small, now that cap is medium instead.
Interesting. Okay.
But they're still occupying that space, and I think the main threat with ooze is if they actually touch you, right? Like that's how
they hit you, yeah. And it's supposed to be strength based, and I think if you do enlarge, you get like an extra D4 strength damage,
right? Which is already terrifying.
And so they punch you with strength, and then they do a D4 bludgeoning and acid damage, I think. But
right,
yeah, it was just a really cool comment. Someone was actually being nice on D&D Beyond and asking a question.
That's a really solid happenstance, because it's not crystal clear.
Yeah.
Right? Do they just keep getting smaller and smaller at that certain point? Me, I would probably play it, like I said, up or down one, where you still have that threat level.
Yeah, so if you cast enlarge, it goes from being medium to large, and then you cut it, and they're both medium.
Yeah.
And then if you reduce it, it would go down to small, like it's supposed to, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was really cool and fun, and I almost want to do it to you guys, like a wizard that's controlling like oozes.
Well, and then I guess the other side is even if you reduce it, now you're having to deal with a tiny ooze, and then you could have like all 8 of them in one square attacking one individual.
Yeah.
Which is
ooze horde.
Yeah. Like, swarm.
Scary. Yeah, swarm. Swarm ooze.
Yeah, you know.
I just thought it was a cool comment, and I enjoyed that.
No, that's solid, and I do feel like we changed D&D Beyond because everything's been positive that I've been reading as well.
Yeah, what's yours?
Yeah, so mine was it was like a new player's guide to character relations, and it talks about role playing, and how to get into the more role playing aspect of D&D, and it's pretty good solid advice. It talks about being comfortable, you know, and you're going to feel awkward. Everyone feels a little bit awkward when they first start it, you know.
Yeah.
And not everyone needs a cool voice, you know, or anything like that, you know. Like
I don't do accents.
If anything, if you're very new to role playing, my suggestion is do a voice you're comfortable with, which is your voice.
Yeah.
Right. Because if it's a long-term campaign, you don't want to be doing it 6 hours a week, once a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the other side of that too is that you don't have to like do an accent like you can. You can literally just like change the way your face is. Like you do your jaw like that. See, it changes the way I'm talking.
Yeah.
So you can literally just like make your face all like scrunched up in a weird way, and then you'll start talking in a different accent. You know, and it just gets weird.
Yeah. And you don't always have to do that. Do what you're comfortable with first.
Yeah.
And then kind of explore some things. One shots are a great mechanic for that. Yes, the Russian Goliath. You know?
And old Castian's Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's fun to do for one shots, and you kind of explore. And a big thing in the article that was real positive is like it's okay to be goofy. You're playing an imaginary game with your friends.
Yeah.
You know, so don't feel like shame that you want to walk in there. And if you do want to have an accent, if you do want to look a little bit different or something along those lines, and then the comment that I have, and this is something that I may add to our Discord that I really liked. The positive comment that I have was pretty cool, and it actually talked about creating a campfire chat kind of thing. And what you do with it is your people are then allowed to role play inside of that chat. So, and it kind of helps alleviate that downtime, right? So in a campaign that spans months, years inside the game, you can get to a point where it feels like
you're talking about creating like a chat room. Okay, it confused me for a second because I was like, how I thought I gave you guys around a campfire, like talk, like role play, do it.
Yeah.
Why aren't you having fun? I specifically ordered it. You know, like
you do give those times.
You're talking about like downtime.
Downtime.
Like, go over to the Mediocre experts, Discord and hop into the campfire chat.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
And then
product placement.
Ross, Ross can actually jump in there and as Ambrose be like, oh, it rained today, and that reminds me of this time, and he can kind of flesh some of those ideas out and that kind of thing.
It rained today and made me a Sag boy.
It made me sad. Yeah, exactly. And I do like that idea. I like that concept of like, and especially like in a Discord and stuff like that, is now if you have other people who are playing, they may want to role play a different character, and then you would see how they would interact and things like that.
That's actually cool.
Like Cap might meet someone in my campaign and be like, oh, what do you think about this? And then it lets you feel your character more fleshed out, which allows you to make more in-character decisions when you're at the table.
Yeah, I've also noticed that it's real easy for people to say shit with their keyboard warriorness, like on a chat, because you're not face to face with those people.
Exactly.
So like sitting at a table with people like staring at you, like explain your backstory to me.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm a cleric. Like,
and like I think we traveled for a week in the session that I missed or something like that.
Yeah. 11 days.
11 days, and you got to think that's 11 days of like you actually sitting around a campfire, and there were probably conversations that happened.
Yeah, they could have talked to Marshall Slate and all those guys.
Yeah, and I think that kind of chat allows for that, and then it doesn't take too much away from the game while you're sitting down.
Facebook Messenger would actually be really good for this because you can set nicknames for people, which means you can actually give those people like Cap and Whistler and Ambrose, like all the names of their characters, and then they can actually like try to role play as that character. Which that's a beautiful thing. I've never thought about that.
I think it's a cool idea. I'm gonna add one in the Discord, and then I do think I'll probably do individual chats as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do one on Facebook Messenger since that's primarily what we do.
Oh, exactly. And then
I'll get to kick Ryan out of it.
The one that I disagreed with was someone was saying that they like the role play aspect of having a sidebar for like their lone wolf characters and stuff like that, and they would allow
like straight to the DM is what you're saying,
right? And they would even allow those individuals to do like entire heists and stuff like that outside of the game session. I don't know if I don't necessarily agree with that part of it in that you're playing a game, everyone knows you're a rogue, and it's still fun for everyone to experience your pass and your fails. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Everyone gets to, and I will fully admit that there are times where, so for instance, you guys went and robbed a store to help Marshall Slate, which was a guy that was in Cap's backstory. He was dying of cancer, essentially. And so she went and got him a potion of longevity. And she took you as Whistler and Verta, who's another burglar type person, and then Cap, obviously, to go to a potion shop, and they were straight up robbed like this 10,000 gold thing, right? And we talked about this briefly before, but you did all that, and at the same time, Ambrose, Ross's character, was flying around with his like cloak of the bat, and he was like, "Oh, I see how it is. You don't want to invite me over here and do this stuff." And I was like, "Well, you're kind of lawful right now, lawful chaotic lawful," and of course, no, they wouldn't want to do that because you'd sell them out, but. He was very metagamey with it, right? Because he was at the table, he wanted to be involved, and he thought he needed to be involved, even though he could have taken a sidebar on this one.
Right.
And so I guess I could see where that causes issues. So like if Whistler wanted to go and assassinate people, I can see how at that point there's no reason why I couldn't have you just show up to the session with this big ass bag of gold that you got from like the Crow Network, and then everybody's like, "How'd you get that money?" And then you role play that aspect of it, right? And you tell that story.
And see, my counter argument is not everyone has that capability, right?
True,
and whenever you're
true.
playing, there does need to be a certain balance, right? Of we work 40-ish hours a week, and we do other things outside where we wouldn't necessarily have time. I have a whole family that I help take care of.
True.
You know.
True.
So for me, I would have less opportunity than someone who is only participating in D&D, and then they might have more time to devote to that kind of stuff. So that's why I would tread the line there of saying anything that affects actual things in the game, like gold count, experience, that kind of stuff, I would probably limit. And then that way people aren't focused on like coming up to you and being like, "Oh, I want to do this heist so that I can get a +3 Vorpal sword," and stuff. And
this is where, as a DM, I would be like, "Fuck you, no."
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Is like it allows another avenue for power gamers to get a little more power out of a game. versus
you're very right. You're very right.
The point of it would be more so that people can feel more comfortable in whatever character they've developed.
Yeah.
That kind of
and
thing.
I could see how it would be like. So yes, I agree. Campfire chat, amazing idea. I'm actually probably going to do that like right as soon as we log off of this and I get it uploaded. And then I can see where there are moments where playing. Like role playing that outside of the game is a good thing, especially if you have the time, like you were saying, because like I still have to figure out what Whistler was doing, like because for that fight that they had, because we haven't played in like 2 weeks now, I need to know like where Whistler's health is at, what he would have used, if he would have used certain potions or whatever, right? Like guns, like for you, your shotgun, right? So, and that's going to determine what items or resources you drain during that fight. So I can see how role playing that outside of, because if we play next week, if we go through that entire combat, that's going to be like 2 hours where it's just me and you going through something. Right. When we could just do it like offline and be like, all right, well, your average roll is like this. So you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And then we can work it out together. Like how many rounds you would have had to use, like what your pass fails were, like where your health is at. And so I guess that's what I'm getting at. I can see where it's useful. And I could see where it wouldn't waste time in the game. Right. That way we can get back to the party's whole story as opposed to just Whistler's side of the combat when he was gone, right?
Yeah, because you're sitting at the table, you don't want to burn an hour going through that interaction. Yeah. But again, I would say tread carefully of not making it a habit. I think exceptions to rules are always going to be a thing. You're always going to have players who can't attend, stuff like that. And catching up with that is a good idea. But I definitely would not make it a standard where someone could come up to me and be like, Whistler's going to do a heist, and then you're like, okay, cool, roll these 3 things,
and that would be up to
500 gold.
Yeah, that would be up to the DM too. So if that's what you want to do in your campaign, do it. But I can tell you, in my campaign, I'm not going to be doing that shit. Like you're not just going to walk up to me and be like, I want to go and rob this store, and then I'm going to be like, well, now you're in prison, so your party has to figure out how to get you out, and you just wasted half my session.
And it all determines how much downtime you actually have between sessions and stuff like that too. Yeah. If 3 sessions ago you ended the session with a character literally getting its throat slit. Old Dell. You don't have any downtime between that and the next session. Nope. You know what I mean?
Nope. There's no campfire chat there.
And what I was going to say is the campfire could have been some of the journeys up to there, and that's why you can role play it as that those happened in the past. Versus something that affects gameplay. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
You just talk about your story and your backstory and figure out why Cap is looking for this crazy like person. Yeah, exactly. I could see that. I could see it. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I agree with you, but I also disagree with you because I could see where it's useful, but at the same time, I definitely would not. I mean, I'm very stingy with magic items anyway, so I don't think I would allow people to just be like, hey, you remember that like potion of longevity? I'm going to go steal it in my downtime. I'm like, no, I have a plan for that. So
yeah, exactly.
Get out of here. Get out of here. And go and get.
It's all about, again, controlling the narrative and stuff like that. Your players are free to make choices and other such things, and then you write the story around that. Yeah. No, makes sense. And again, it's all just valuable tools.
That was your comment?
Those were my comments.
Okay, so I guess to sum this one up, black pudding is going to be awesome because I'm going to use enlarge on it, and then we're going to have to figure out how to do that. If you are changing mechanics halfway through the story, you're probably wrong. But if you start the campaign and explain what's going on, like, hey, you guys aren't going to start with dark vision. As a player, don't be a bitch and quit arguing about it. And then because the rules can always change. All that shit we just talked about with you, I don't even remember.
Campfire chat.
Campfire chat. I'm going to start that.
Yep.
And also, revenge stories are amazing. So I don't know what I'm going to title this video, but it's going to be something cool.
The Count of Monte Cristo and the Revenge of the Gladiator.
Revenge of the Gladiator, part 5, 9, 6, 7.
Yeah, Afterlife.
Gladiator 3. Afterlife. Maximus Decimus Meridius comes back again.
From Elysium.
Again.
And this time he's fighting the Passion of the Christ.
Oh, God. All right. Well, let's get here. As always, this is sponsored by Finrat.com. Because we don't have any other sponsors right now. So Finrath.com is where you can go and find all the Finrath and Ebrium lore that we talk about on the show. And I promise I'll get to actually writing new stuff on there eventually. I think Ryan's supposed to be working on Third Continent too, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
My Other downtime activities are twitch.tv/ZombieNikon. We go and play stupid games. Right now we're playing through 7 Days to Die, Minecraft. I got to start some other series up. It's going to be great. We're going to do challenges. It's going to be fun. I have a YouTube channel. You just search ZombieNikon on there. I'm actually about to go and post a couple videos from Fallout New Vegas. So if that's something you're interested in, you can watch me play that. And then we have a Mediocre Experts Discord as well. Which the link will be in the description, wherever you're finding this podcast. And the last thing is mediocreadvice@outlook.com. So if you have any questions about stuff we talk about, if you just want to chat, you can send us an email there. Promise we're not trying to steal your information. You could probably just create like an Outlook account if you don't want us to like look at any of your stuff. #anonymous, and we'll try to help you out as best we can. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, easy enough. Tell your kids, tell your wife, tell everyone up in here.
Yeah. Share the podcast. We're trying to get famous. So, all right. Well, yeah. Let's get this outro going. Right. All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for wasting your time with us.